this next video comes to you from Dustaroo, who's a homie that's very, very kind to us. I showed up in our Twitch chat frequently, shows up on the YouTube, frequently. Somebody we're kind enough to call a friend and homie. So now more than ever, make sure you hit that link that just showed up in the Twitch chat above my head. If you're on YouTube watching in the future, it'll be down in the description below to like and subscribe to support the official release of the video. This is a very highly requested one this week, talking about the possibility of DBD 2. And I think this is something that's been suggested by a lot of people that's kind of like just scrap, because there's a lot of issues with DBD that can't be fixed because of the spaghetti code, because they did not intend the game to get as big as it is. So there's like certain issues that just will always be prevalent until they start over. So this is something that's been suggested before, but we're interested to see what Dustaroo says about it. Yes, Prometheus, you've repeated that joke 4 times in a row. You're hitting me with the, do you have games on your phone? Hey, Mr. Streamer, do you have games on your phone? Do you have games on your phone? No. No, I don't have games on my phone. Yes, I read it the first time, the second time, the third time, and the 4th time. No, I still don't have games on my phone.
How do you do? I'm Dustaroo, and I want to talk to you about the future of Dead by Daylight. Specifically, why Behavior Interactive should start making Dead by Daylight 2. And this isn't even a joke. I know the idea of live service games getting a sequel can leave a bad taste in people's mouth. But I genuinely think it could be the best thing for Dead by Daylight and the future it will and can have. Dead by Daylight is a special case when it comes to live service games, where the benefits of the mass transfer forward could turn Dead by Daylight from what it is now into something absolutely gigantic. And I'm going to tell you why. First big reason, bugs and stability. If you've been around in Dead by Daylight,
it's like the main reason people want it.
Probably know this game is exactly what we would call stable. I do think that we are in the most bug-free era in the history of Dead by Daylight, but game-breaking bugs are still as common as hillbilly players. It's not like you won't ever see them, but when you do, you think, wow, a Billy player, it's been a hot minute. For the second time in a couple months, we've seen flashlights and perks that work with them or spawn them be kill switch, removing a big aspect of the game. Not something crucial for gameplay to happen, but if I took 2 of your toes off your left foot, you'd probably notice and be kind of annoyed.
Not the grippers.
Hey man, I prefer having those toes on there, even if I don't think about them all the time. I prefer having the option to have my toes. Some players are happier than others about flashlights being off the table for now, but it's not just flashlights. It's not also uncommon for your favorite killer to be kill switched just because something—
I remember Reaper was like so sad when homie got kill switched for so long. He's like, that's my main, what would I do? Like if I had Xenomorph, if Xenomorph just randomly got kill switched, I'd be like, bro, what do I do? Like I still play a lot of the characters in the game, but that's like my main happiness in Dead by Daylight is playing Xeno. So like just having that randomly gone would suck. I just feel like, what do I do? Please.
New was added to the game. Invisible Wesker still haunts my dreams. Once again, not an everyday occurrence, but still frequent enough to be an issue, and a genuine fair problem for players to have with the game. Bugs happen in every game. There is no one who's gonna deny that. Coding is messy and difficult. Every game has bugs, but Dead by Daylight has always been a particularly infamous one for a game of its size and player base. The only other game I could think of being just as buggy but popular are Bethesda games. But comparing Dead by Daylight,
but at least with Bethesda games, the community can do hot fixes of their own to fix the bugs. Can't do that in DBD.
Massive open world story game is not even really that fair. It's literally a tiny map with 5 players on it. It's not a lot of moving parts, but this always comes back to when Dead by Daylight was developed. It was never intended, even dreamed of being anything close to what it is now. They had a cool idea that even today is a very niche game to make, where they planned a couple DLCs to rake in some cash from the few people who did buy it, and then they would move on to other projects. So they built a shaky but functional enough foundation. This game was not going to be some long-term—
Can you imagine that happened to you in like college or something like that? You procrastinate until like the last second. You write like a very, very bare bones like C++ like level paper, and you turn it in, the professor's like, wow, this is the best thing ever. You are now going to be teaching the class. And you're just like, brother, I was C's get degrees. Why am I teaching the class? Can you imagine that? That would be terrifying.
Service title that would be launching content all the way past the year 2023 or anything, right? So no point in making the skeleton super strong. So they didn't. They did not make a strong base to build on, coding and engine-wise. Then it launched and caught a lot of hype. And then the Halloween chapter happened, and the wheelbarrows of cash started rolling in, and the devs just kept going and kept growing. And now we are here today. The developers of Until Dawn creating an interactive story game set in and exploring the Dead by Daylight universe, possibly the origin of the trials themselves. A Dead by Daylight film coming out of Blumhouse
Which is
Productions,
wild, absolutely wild.
and a PvE game set in the entity's realm from Midwinter, whose, fun fact, only other produced game, Scavengers, died before it could even leave early access.
That's not...
So, yeah, that's a hopeful looking project.
Yeah, that does not look hopeful.
Dead by Daylight is no longer an indie horror game coming out of Montreal, Canada that just has a couple famous horror characters in it. It has become a brand name, a bankable IP in its own right. Just for scale here, Behavior Interactive made $25 million in 2015, and now are raking in $225 million as of 2021, with estimates of $355 million this year. Wow. This is not all Dead by Daylight. Behavior also publishes, partners, and even produces its own games. But the two most notable recent releases, Meet Your Maker and Death Garden, flopped.
Meet Your Maker. Who even that game existed? I think I forget that until I put on that stupid little cube shirt and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, that did happen.
Pretty early into their lifespan. Death Garden so spectacularly, they don't even list it in their portfolio on their website. So safe to say there's not a lot of revenue coming in from other produced projects. Dead by Daylight is their moneymaker, their cash cow. Is it so crazy to suggest that instead of getting a team together to produce another game that will hardly make it to see its first birthday,
even get matches anymore,
you could get a
Jack?
small team together and start recreating the game we have now? All the assets, killers, cosmetics, maps, player progression, and move it to a new engine that is not held together with duct tape and prayers. All the hard work is already done. They don't need to design any characters or gameplay, but build this exact same lightning in a bottle they have now, and just make the best version of it. One that can actually run 3 Nemesis zombies in a match without causing massive performance issues. This game is so poorly built that 3 slow AIs make the game unplayable on consoles.
Thank you so much for
and I think we can take a wild guess and say it's not because the graphics are too intensive on the system. I wouldn't have made this whole video if it was just about better game performance and bug fixes. Will the game be better optimized? Yes. A better player experience for everybody? Absolutely, but that's not why they should do it. Why this is something I feel strongly about is when it comes to gameplay limitations and game modes. Let's talk about the gameplay limitations first before game modes. Dead by Daylight killers are rather simple ideas for the most part, which is good. Having more killers be easy to pick up and play is better than most being in-depth and specialized. But there is an endpoint to both of these, and Dead by Daylight often treads over the same ideas just in different ways. Chucky is a good example. He feels fresh and interesting. I even made a whole video about it.
Yeah, he's a first third-person killer.
Plug right up there. But the ideas with him, besides just being tiny, are just tweaked variations of stuff we've already seen.
True.
His slice and dice is just Blight and Oni put into an ugly-looking baby. A good middle point, but how many times...
Yeah, sir, actually, it's not really a baby. It's actually a doll. Did you even watch the Child Play movies? Come on now. Come on, get more accurate with your videos. Thank you.
Can we just have a charge or a second to drop an item in a loop, forcing a hit or pallet drop? Some ability that hits over window or pallet before we feel like it's enough.
Hey, glasses ready? I always have the glasses ready. I'm always ready to nerd.
One of our most different type of powers on the technical level is the twins. Switching control between two characters. And when the twins launched, wow.
One of the roughest killer launches
that
ever.
Was bad. They caused so many bugs and other issues with the game, I'm surprised players were even able to launch it. I'm not even over-exaggerating. The twins brought so many bugs to the game, not just to themselves, but all around the game. For almost a month, the game had been in one of the worst states it had ever been at any point in its history, if not the worst when it comes to bugs. Which is kind of a scary thought, right? That something that does not even seem like such a crazy out-of-the-box gameplay mechanic was such a problem for the game as a whole.
When I tell you guys like war stories about like the twins chapter and you're entitled to financial compensation, does it make sense now? Now that you actually have footage, do you believe me? Do you believe me?
Just sprouting fires left and right. You know the devs have not forgotten that. Unlike people forget the twins exist, or they wish they could forget the twins exist. When they design new characters and powers, they are going to be more hesitant with new ideas. If they know the result could be them having to use a kill switch button a lot more.
Goodbye, Victor.
Which sucks because I genuinely want new experiences when I play as and against a killer. A reason I like Chucky so much is not even for any of his powers, but his height, adding a whole new layer of a fresh experience in how a match plays out. I have to keep a keen eye out for him, low to the ground, and I have to move a little bit different. It's not a massive change, but it's enough that I feel like it's genuinely praiseworthy. As much as I like that Alien is in the game, nothing feels special about her, except the flame turret.
It's okay. Everybody's entitled to an opinion. It's fine. It's okay. Everybody can feel whatever way they want. Okay, it's fine. It just hurts a little.
Her tail.
Why are you using Surge on an M2 character? Maybe that's your problem. Anyways,
it's just a better Nemi whip, and she has an underground train station to every general.
Actually, Mr. YouTuber, actually, it's a better Nemi whip only in the fact that the Xenomorph has instant access to the injury. So essentially you start the match as tier 2 Nemesis, except the fact that you cannot break pallets, which is kind of a problem sometimes. And also Nemesis unlocks the ability at tier 3 to have an extra meter of distance compared to the Xenomorph, which does make it a better attack once you hit tier 3. So I feel like that's leaving out a lot of information, because technically Nemesis has a better M2, but only after they build up to it, whereas the Xenomorph has technically only a better M2 for a short period, and then Nemesis get better later in the game. So, I feel like you left out a lot of information there.
Wow, a lot of nerds this time around. Cross to that voice and Kronk, I feel like my brain would break.
Raider on the map, kind of like Demogorgon, kind of like Sadako, just in a new
Narb, is that the Nurge guy? Did we just name the Nurge persona? Narb?
I made him backwards. Up to interpretation.
Yeah, that's Narb.
Being new and creative? No. She feels like an update of mechanics rather than new experiences for the most part, which doesn't take away from the character, but it does take away some excitement when it comes to looking towards future updates. I'm by no means saying we don't get interesting new concepts when it comes to killers. If you can give Singularity anything, it's that he's quite a different feeling character to play as both and against. With his eyes in the sky, cross-map teleports, he feels different enough to feel like a new experience, at least to me. Say what you will about the power level and ease to get into it, but he is unique. We can't know what it's like behind the scenes when they're coming up with killer designs. How much of it is creativity and how much of it is technical limitations, but we can see the barriers. AI like zombies are pretty much off the—
I like this video a lot, but just keep in mind this video is about DBD 2. We've got off the rails a little bit into a whole lot of other cool stuff that we're talking about, which is fine. It's just talking about DBD 2, by the way.
the table. Summoners are a nightmare
Just
to
call
do,
Singularity or
so it's
Pookie.
not surprising we don't have some more crazy
Right.
ideas like killers
Only looks
being
at a
able
pack
to
of gum a little
alter
weirdly,
maps
huh?
in interesting ways, summon objects,
You're like,
etc.,
ooh.
etc. There is a lot of room to explore gameplay-wise, but if you're locked in a glass cage in the middle of a room, you can only work with what you got. It doesn't matter what you can see, if you physically can't reach it, it might as well not even exist. Right, killer gameplay done. Let's talk new game modes, events, and server browsers. From a gameplay perspective, I think this would be a perfect way to bring people back to the game. I have seen countless people talk about how they don't play the game at all, have not played in years, but still keep up with the game and watch other people play it. For various reasons.
I can play it for you.
I've heard
while
it's
you don't.
too stressful for them. They don't enjoy playing the main game mode we have now, and we go on and on. So many players still engage and consume Dead by Daylight in so many ways, but play.
Better
One
Freddy.
of my personal
Hey,
friends
maybe that's
who
what
really
Magno will be,
likes
Better
Dead
Freddy.
by Daylight doesn't really want to play it anymore. He's just bored with it. He got his fill. It does not really add anything more. But anytime we talk about 2v8, he talks about playing in a heartbeat. That's exciting. An interesting new experience for him to invest and
Look,
enjoy.
10
You have
gens,
to
that's
wonder
funny.
for the reasons we don't have new game modes.
Oh my
or
gosh, look at
any
it go!
other way to enjoy
So
Dead by
funny! Dude, reel him into the chainsaw? That's so powerful. That's so strong. Found you through another streamer and checked out YouTube. Finally some good Xeno content? Yes! I'm the number 4 Xenomorph in your world. So, if you like Xeno, you're in the right place.
An interesting new experience for him to invest and enjoy. You have to wonder for
That's
the
so
reasons
funny.
we don't
That's
have
so
new
powerful.
game modes or any other way to enjoy Dead by Daylight. Is it because the devs just don't want to do it? Do they think it would negatively impact the game? Or is it just making another game mode work would be a technical nightmare with the game we have currently? As much as people like to dump on Overwatch like they have food poisoning, there are some amazing features that really round out the whole experience. Not just new game modes, but there are custom game modes. The Workshop, where players can create their own game modes,
Yep.
mechanics, and publicly post them for others to try. A server browser that allows fans to build up any ideas that come to them, and maybe it becomes a popular mode that other people launch Dead
That's how Dota 2 happened. Through yeah. That's how Dota happened. That's how Dota 2 happened. Through Warcraft.
by Daylight to exclusively play. I can imagine a ton of players who don't have that spark or fire to play regular DBD anymore, where they could have their passion reignited if they could try a mode where they could play a killer with their friend, or just even prop hunt in DBD. It's also a great excuse for devs not putting time and money into working on new game modes. They wouldn't need to. When the fans are doing all the hard work and playtesting for them, it just seems like a win-win. And I'm almost positive they would not be able to create a browser or workshop-like system in the current game we have, even if they put all of their time and effort into it. But the biggest reason they should do this is so we can get a stats page. I want to see my wins, I want to see my deaths, I want to see my individual killer
You have to go
playtime
to
and whatever
third-party
other
sites to do it right
stats they
now.
have. And I know I am not alone in that. Others would be ecstatic to know how often they got a 4K with their best killer. God, would it inflate some egos and cause some cringe discussions on Twitter or the forums though. But not having stats hasn't stopped those people already, so at least there would be physical evidence to back up their claims. They have said apparently in the past, I'm not sure how long ago, but fairly long ago, that it wasn't possible for Dead by Daylight in the way that it is built to be able to track individual stats like that. At the very least, they couldn't track any of the stats we had before. I'm not sure if I believe them or if there's maybe some other reason, but they are able to track stats themselves, like knowing how many hooks happened in a year. I'm not a game dev, so I don't actually know the logistics behind this, but if they couldn't find a way to create a viewable stats section, then the problem is probably far worse than any of us really realize, reinforcing why they need to make Dead by Daylight 2 Electric Boogaloo.
It's coming.
Thank you everyone
I
who
knew, I
made it here
probably haven't
thus
seen it.
far, because most don't. This is just an idea I've had in my mind for a while. Really became more and more apparent as I started diving into more killer concepts, power ideas, and just saw how limiting the game actually feels. Like, it has so much room for growth. So I want to know how you feel about these ideas. Does any of this actually seem like a good, like, idea? Do you like the concept of, like, DBD 2 if they, like, made a separate game
Path
and
of Least Resistance,
pushed
yeah.
everything onto it? Or do you just feel like it's so far out of reach that
I mean, that's kind of like just like the whole thing about like economics in general is putting the least amount of resources in for the highest amount of profit. So like from just a business perspective, it makes sense. Now there's something to be said for like customer or consumer retention, right? So obviously if they put all this effort in, they would probably retain more of their consumers, but usually it's all about the least amount of resources in, most amount of profit out. I think in terms of DBD 2, like I think the big thing that a lot of people said at the beginning of this video, which is still prevalent, is like renegotiating all these licenses would be a nightmare, a logistical nightmare. So I don't see them ever realistically doing it, because it's not like all their characters are original. And if you just like plop DBD 2 out with only all the original content, I don't feel like the people would invest in the game nearly as much. So I don't think that's realistically something they are going to do ever. I just do not see it happening, no matter what kind of good it would cause in terms of like removing all the bugs and making the game more fun to play. Like if we have not even had a health patch. We have not even had a health patch in this game. We have other games that have had like notoriously like really bad bugginess, like Rainbow Six Siege. They've had health patches. We still haven't had a health patch yet in this game. So you think that if they can even spare a health patch for the game, that they're going to start making a whole new one? When we haven't even had a health patch yet? It's just like, it's not going to happen. Health patch, like if they, instead of releasing a new killer or a new survivor on the 3-month cycle, they just say, hey, we're going to take a break, work on balance, work on fixing bugs, and just have a big like quality of life update to the game. So like if we haven't even had that yet, I can almost guarantee that we're not going to have DBD 2. It's just kind of like a pipe dream. In a perfect world, maybe, but really we are far from living in a perfect world. So I don't think we're getting DBD 2. I would be surprised if we even had a health patch. So ideally, yes. Realistically, no, not going to happen, unfortunately.